out here, straight up Cali, let's go. Straight up Cali, sun's blazing high.
Greetings, good people. Welcome back to another episode of Leaders and Learners, where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. And today on Leaders and Learners, we're talking to the man behind the curtain of sports' biggest moments, from the NBA Finals to the MLB World Series. Don, let me tell you about Don. He has produced over 3,000 live events, shaping the way fans experience the game itself, right? He's the author of this new book, Beyond the Scoreboard. And today we're going behind the lights, the sound, and the strategy that makes it happen. Don, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Tanya.
I'm so thrilled to talk to you because I'm a sports fan, obviously, and we have had so many great experiences at sporting events. And to find out that you are one of the magicians behind all of that, it is awesome to have an opportunity to chat with you. So I want to jump right in and ask you, you've produced over 3,000 live events. What's one behind the scene moment that made you realize that this is more than just entertainment, it's culture?
Yeah, no question. I think, it hit me when I went to San Antonio with the Spurs. I started my career in athletics with NC State and then went to the University of Memphis. But that moment was when I came into the San Antonio Spurs in 1999 as their director of game operations and promotions. I came in during the NBA Finals. One day I'm sitting at Conference USA, a baseball tournament, and the next week I'm at the NBA Finals. It was just unreal. But that's where the magnitude of what the Spurs were doing, their strategy, their vision for game presentation really made me step back and go, wow, this is incredible. This is something that is my passion. I found my career when I went to NC State and worked in athletics, but I found my passion when I got to the Spurs and saw how they were implementing their game day presentation and just the magnitude of dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and making sure a full spectrum of experiences were available to their fan base.
So looking at that experience in itself, it feels like it's something that just kind of hit you. And I think for careers, and because I speak a lot to young college students, those trying to figure out what's next for them. And I always try to emphasize, sometimes you need to follow your career where it's taking you, and it feels like that is something that you've done. Can you get into that a little more, like that feeling, and then how you decided to follow your gut and just keep going down that path?
I 100% agree with you. And, I didn't know coming out of school I was going to go into the event presentation game operation side of it. I got a degree in marketing, and like any other college graduate, you're looking for that next job. And I just could not get that opportunity. So my dad helped me get my first job. And believe it or not, you might find this interesting, Tanya, my first job was actually selling cider and apples for Westminster Station, Vermont, in Vermont. And as much as I love cider and apples, that wasn't my passion. But I got my road into sports by sending out cold resumes, and I got rejected. And back then, this is X years ago, I got rejection letters. I would write these handwritten letters that just said, thank you for rejecting me. And one day, out of the blue, Tanya, out of the blue on a Friday, I get a call from the associate athletic director for the NC State University, just calling to say that it showed a lot of character and he appreciated getting this letter. And in our conversation, mind you, this is late afternoon on a Friday workday. I'm at Vermont Apple Orchards. And he said, listen, if you're ever in town, and because I had told him my girlfriend lived at the time down there, come meet me. I would love to just say hello. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to actually be there tomorrow, which wasn't the truth, but I quickly got off the phone and just hoped that I could get an airline ticket. And I did. I got down there. We were supposed to meet for an hour, and I ended up spending 8 hours with him. And I know it's a long story, but on Monday, the following Monday, he called me to offer me the same job I got rejected because he just loved what our conversation was about and the passion I had for sport. But I also believe that everything happens for a reason. And, to your point, I just followed the steps, and I got to NC State. I worked my butt off, and it kind of led me down the path to saying, you know what, as an intern, I moved up to an assistant director. And sometimes in order to move out or move up, you got to move out, right? They always would see me as little Don Costante, the intern at NC State. So I wanted to be my own person, went to Memphis. And then that's where I was very fortunate in getting a call from the Spurs, and it led me on that path. And I mentioned that, but it was a crossroads for me. I got to the University of Memphis, and after I got the opportunity with the Spurs, I was like, okay, do I go event presentation, fan engagement, or do I stay with marketing, corporate sales, and working with college athletics? And you know what? My heart just said, let's do something different at a different level. And when I got there, that's where I told you I found my passion.
Incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Tickets for things like games, movies, games, I feel like I'm paying for more than just a game. I'm paying for an experience. One of the greatest experiences I've had in sports has been one when the Giants played the Dodgers at the Dodger Stadium and the Dodgers lost. They still did their fireworks, so I was very appreciative of that as a Giants fan. Okay, but then the LA Sparks always put on an incredible production. And I want you to explain to people the difference between a game and an experience, and how do most teams miss the mark?
Yeah. So, I tell people all the time, people don't just come to games anymore for the sake of just the game. They're coming for an experience. They're paying for an experience. Very few, there's a small percentage of people, Tanya, that go to the game just for the game itself. So what are we doing as event presentation people to entertain, to engage, to create those connections with people? My wife is not a fan of sports, and we were on vacation one time in Orlando, and I had the opportunity years ago to go to a Orlando Magic game, and it was with Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway. Wow. It was amazing. But again, she wasn't into sports. She didn't want to go, but I finally convinced her to go. And when she went, the Orlando Magic did what you just talked about, like what the Sparks did. They created quite an atmosphere, an experience for her. In the fourth quarter, here's my wife standing, yelling for the free T-shirt and just dancing on the video board, being caught by the cameras. And she looked at me after the game and said, "You got to get a job in the NBA." It's because she had such an incredible experience. And a lot of people miss this. A lot of people let the game itself be the entertainment. And that happens a lot in college athletics. They let the color and pageantry of college athletics or traditions take over, which is great, no question. But what are you doing to fill the gaps, to create a cohesive event presentation? And if your team isn't doing very well, it's that much more important to create some touch points, some engagement. And what are those? A lot of people miss that. And it's really a well thought out, you need to take a well thought out plan, put a philosophy together that you're going to be fan centric. Everything that you're doing, the decisions that you're making are being made with the intent of how it's going to make those fans feel. And so the Sparks do a wonderful job of that, from the atmosphere when you walk in with the lighting and the video boards, to the music that's being played, to the MC, to the way things are being executed. And not just the way they're being executed, but the content that's being delivered is thought out. There's story in what's being done in terms of the contest or the promotions. It's not just throwing a person out there and doing a trivia contest. It's really thinking through a beginning, a middle, and an end. And what's the emotion that we're trying to generate from people that are watching this? And what's the end goal? And that's to entertain. They do a really good job with that. And I think a lot of people struggle with it, Tanya, to be honest with you, is because there's just a lack of knowledge in this space. There's not a course or a class, previously that teaches people when they get into these roles how to do this. They just inherit what's currently being done. And if it's not being done well, they continue to do status quo until they eventually learn to change things up. But that's why I came out with the book, to try to help those type of people.
I love that. One thing about sports is that it's global, right? It's one
Absolutely.
of the things in life, probably one of the reasons I love it so much is because it's more of a connector than a divider, even though we're battling teams. But sports connects us. And you've worked across NBA, MLB, NCAA, and even EPL, right?
Yep. Yep.
What's one global lesson about fan engagement that US sports still need to learn?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you first, let me tell you the big difference between, when you're dealing with like EPL or you're dealing with like a team like Manchester City or Derby County
Mhm.
versus United States. I mean, they're born into it. I mean, they grow up as Manchester, whether it's United or City, they that's what they're born into. But they are so passionate, so authentic about their emotions. And here in the United States, I'm not saying we're not, but when it comes to game days, the direction that we take with game days is we're more of a conductor with the crowd, meaning we're using our resources, video and music, to get people to stand up, make noise. And we use game prompts specifically to say, stand up and shout. That's not something necessarily overseas, right? They're more about coming about the encouraging their team organically through chants and things of that nature. I think that I think one of the things that we can learn is just the and a lot of people are passionate, but just bringing that sense of pride, community. You talked about making connections. I mean, sporting events is about, it's a community there, right? And it's up to the organization to really, create touch points for them and create connections amongst that community. And I think that we can learn a better job and take note of what they do overseas in terms of bringing our passion and being organic in how we're approaching encouragement of our team and support of the team.
I appreciate that. I hope you guys are picking up what he's putting down. I do have many viewers that are part of youth sports and community events that take place. And I want you to drop a few gems for them and talk to me about how much of a game day should be planned or an event day should
Mhm.
be planned and how much of it should be organic energy. And how do you create that organic energy to
Yeah.
make events memorable?
Yeah. So really, when you talk about the planning, putting on an event, it should be very well planned out. And obviously, organic, authentic emotion is part of that. But really, when you talk about, when I was just taking an example with the Spurs, we start months in advance, whether it's the Spurs or the Royals for that matter. We start months in advance planning each game day, from what it's going to look like from the outside when they park to when the journey walking in and getting to their seats, to the actual game itself and everything in between, and to the final whistle and when they're leaving. So it's important to really plan out your events and think it through. Now, that being said, the touch points that you create from the outside in and the types of entertainment that you're providing that in a way that allows people to be organic and authentic. For example, it could be as simple as putting people on the camera, right, with music, and allowing them to be part of the interaction with the music and seeing themselves dance. There's letting people be in part of experiential type of opportunities, whether it's on the court, in this particular example with the Spurs, and it's not as simple as a high five tunnel, to being picked to be a part of a contest or a promotion, or just being in the stands and taking part in, maybe it's a wave that is going because it's being orchestrated by the team in a high pitch moment or a high moment. So there's a lot of things, but to your point, I do think that it needs to be very well thought out, to be organized, to be professional, but allow the opportunities along that journey and that path for people to show their authenticity.
Yeah. So you're essentially saying looking at the landscape of your event, almost every detail should be worked out? Or
Yeah, you really got to think, right? You got to think about your journey. So when people arrive, what's their journey, and what do you want them to see? What's the emotion that you want them to be feeling? And are you trying to save it for when they get inside? Are you using your entertainment resources outside to create that meet and greet as people are coming in? Do you have vendors out there? Do you have a DJ outside? What type of atmosphere do you want? And then and then also, are you taking advantage of your community and the resources that are available within the community, and to start growing even young people and utilizing their talents, whether it's cheer or dance or drum lines or whatever you may have available that costs nothing, that allow these individuals to come to be a part of your brand and to also enhance the game day experience. But then it's strategically, where do you align them? How you don't want to bombard it all in one area. You think through that process, and once they get in the doors, where do you want them to go? And then when they're inside, how are you engaging with them? Are they just sitting there? A lot of people will just sit there until the start of the game or the anthem, but that's a lot of wasted time. What are you doing to engage and create those experiences for these individuals that have paid a lot of money in most cases? They're not just wanting to sit there. They're excited about being there. They may be in awe about the stadium or just the history of what they're about to see or what they're taking part in. But it's our job as event presentation directors to put a script together, a run of show that really engages them with music and lighting and video board and entertainment resources. And it's about really a puzzle that you all put together in a fine story that you're laying down. And the key characters are, obviously you got the players themselves, but the fans are a big part of that. And you got the sponsors to interweave into that, and without bombarding your fans. So it's a very well thought out, methodical type of direction that you're taking in your game days that elevates the overall fan experience.
And are you dropping these gems in the book?
Yeah, all of it. I'm telling you, to make it easy, right? I mean, I can sit here and talk about it and people go, well, I hear all that, but that doesn't really help me because I really need somebody to lay it out for me. Well, I do, and coming from that mindset, being an event director, I dot those I's, I cross those T's, I provide all of the strategies, the tactics, the insights that have been successful for me for 30 years, from collegiate to professional ranks, and even other events that I've done. I didn't talk to you about it. I put templates in there. I actually it's a guidebook. I guide you to exactly the strategies that you should take to get to that standard, that high standard that maybe you haven't been at or you don't know how to get to. And the beautiful thing about it is once you get to that area, that standard, then you can customize it to your own organization's likes and elevate it even that much more. I told you already, so many people get into these positions, they just don't know any better. There's just not a class or anything that has taught them how to do this unless they have really good mentors or people before them that had laid down a really good game plan. In most cases, people are struggling and they don't understand all that's involved with event presentation. This lays it all out. Not only does it lay it out, I'll give you an example, like when you're talking about entertainment resources, I go so far to talk about each entertainment resource, what you're looking for when you're trying to audition them. I go through what the audition process should be. I go through how you should communicate with them, how you should incorporate them into your game days. I talk about all of that and the mindset of what a game director and how they should utilize them and communicate with them. It's that detailed all the way through.
It sounds like I like to reverse engineer things, right? Yeah. So it sounds like you almost think about the story you want someone to tell about your event, and then you reverse engineer, how do I get there? How do I make sure that the people are telling this story about this event that they came to that we produced?
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
No, absolutely. And I even go so far to say as we're talking about creating the type of atmosphere, we talk in great lengths about, okay, for the player introduction, what's the emotion we're trying to get them to feel? And then we backtrack it from there. How do we create that? What's the end result first? Well, the end result is we want them on their feet. We want them feeling like they got goosebumps going on and they're just going crazy. Well, how do we get there? Yeah, well, let's go back. Music. What's the music plan for it? What's the video that we want to incorporate, or what's the theme or the thematics for it? How are we going to use our dance or our entertainment resources that leads to the video, that leads to the overall music and the introduction? And we start backtracking it just like you're talking about, so that we know we're going down a path in the end that's going to lead to the type of emotion that we're hoping to get.
I love that. I love that. Listen, I know in my profession, you can take all the PR and comms classes you want, but at the end of the day, there's still some lived experience that you have to be good at it, right? You're not going to get out of school and just know everything. It's just not even a thing. So I want you to tell me what you had to learn outside of your classroom instruction that you've been able to apply and help you be successful. And do you share it in the book?
Yeah, no, I do share it in the book, for sure. And, I had to learn how to multitask. You learn that in school a little bit, obviously, but there's a great deal of multitasking. But I think the number one thing on top of multitasking is communication. Communication, not in just the way that you communicate with your staff, but the communication documents and how you break down the silos in an organization so that you understand that you're collaborating with everybody. It's not just the event presentation team against everybody else, or we're doing it by ourselves. We're working in a collaborative way with other departments to reach the goals and objectives of what they're trying to achieve, but also what, as a filter for a fan, what I'm trying to achieve in the event presentation director space for the fans. And so that it's a win-win. So communication, I probably is the number one. Multitasking, communication, preparation, execution is so key. Execution, and I can't drive that home enough. I don't do anything without rehearsing. I think the biggest mistake that I see out there is so many people are putting things in front of an audience or in front of a fan base for the first time. And the first time they're doing it is when they're actually doing it. Right. And so then people sit back and they see some dysfunctional things happening, people not sure where they're supposed to be standing, some awkward pauses, maybe not some matching up video or other technical glitches. Well, a lot of that is steered by maybe leadership that says, hey, this just came to us. We have to do it tonight. Stick this in. And I think that's a big problem out there, is preparation.
So do your run-throughs, people. Do your run-throughs.
Run-throughs. Yeah.
Don't ad-lib your events. They might not go well. One of the most important, I guess, evolutions in sports media, sports management, sporting events is sponsorship activations. Mm-hmm. And they used to be just logos, and that's kind of not what's going on now. So yeah, it's more about connection. How do you help brands show up authentically inside fan experiences?
Yeah, it used to be just a logo, right? A PA announcer with a PA message and a logo that goes up there. But how entertaining is that? And it's not to say that doesn't still happen. Pre-game, you see a lot of that type of thing. But how do you take a partner and how do you transform what their objectives are, whether it's awareness or a secondary goal of driving traffic to a retail location or whatever it may be? And how do you take that and you connect it with the organization, the team's brand, and deliver an entertaining type of atmosphere? And I think that, for me, when you talk about professional sports, you're talking about multiple games. And when you contract with a partner, and let's just say, for example, they have one activation every game, it's about find out first and foremost what their goals and objectives are, what are they trying to accomplish, but let's develop, 10 different ideas that we're going to present to the partner. And maybe it's a contest specific that they're wanting. And we're going to present these ideas with the understanding they're going to choose 3 or 4 of them. And those 3 or 4 are going to be used throughout the season to rotate. So if fans are coming to, let's say, a baseball game, and it's a 6-game homestand, and you have 3 promotions, well, they're only seeing the same contest twice. And if they're coming to a series, they're never seeing the same thing twice. So you're not going to become stale or predictable, for one thing. The other thing is that we intertwine their brand with our brand, meaning that we're developing, and theming the promotion using the color schemes from their company as well as our company, and we're creating animations and graphics that are much more likable and add to the overall enhancement or enjoyment of what we're trying to do in the storytelling. So we open with that animation and graphic, right, with the theme music that we tie to it, and it's no longer just a logo and a PA. Now it's a host maybe delivering the message, but doing it organically. We give them kind of a structure to follow. But to your point earlier, Tanya, this is where they can ad-lib. This is where they can be organic in their approach on how they're delivering what the partner's trying to get out of it, but also delivering the contest that we have structured with some humor and some drama to it. And then all the while providing cohesive branding for the partner with that animation and graphic and such, that leads to the ultimate outcome of the person winning, and then closing it up like you're telling a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So that's just one example. It's really intertwining the partners into what you're doing in the vision of what you're trying to ultimately do for your fan base, and that's entertain them. So use your partners and accomplish their goals and objectives, but do it in a way that is entertaining and not bombarding the fan base with just messaging.
Is there a time when partners come to you and they don't even know what they want the intended outcome to be? Do you help them craft that? 'Cause I've had this experience. So
Yeah,
they're like, well, we just want to be a part. Well, what do you want to do? I don't know. You tell us what we want to.
Some do, Tanya, and actually those are really good because typically a lot of event presentation directors have a list of really cool promotions they've wanted to try, but they don't have a partner attached to it, so they don't have the funding or the budget to be able to do it in some cases. So when you have partners that come to the table that said, listen, I just want to be involved, we really don't have an end game to this other than we just want the attachment, the association. Great. Let me give you a list of some content that we've come up with that we think would be fantastic. And we can attach your name to. And those are the best case scenarios. Then there's others that, partners will come to the table and say, hey, listen, we already have the idea that we want to go forward with. We do this in market X, Y, and Z. And I will tell you right now, that's sometimes good and bad, but the thing about it is what works in X, Y, and Z doesn't necessarily always work in your market. So as event presentation directors, it's our job to tweak those ideas to our fan base and to our market so that they do work. And sometimes the challenge is getting the partner to understand that because they think it is a cookie cutter. They think that what we're doing on the West Coast, you could do on the East Coast. And maybe you can, but in a lot of cases, that doesn't really play well. And so you ultimately are looking out for the partner so that what their activation is, it does play well. But again, as filters for the fan, we want it to play well for the partner, but also for the fan.
What a wealth of knowledge you are. So guys, make sure that if you take part in producing events, sporting events in particular, but a lot of what he's saying can apply to just about any type of event, corporate, nonprofit, youth sports. It doesn't just have to be high-end sports entertainment, but a lot of these elements can apply across the board. So take the opportunity and get some of this knowledge that Don is sharing with us. Don, I want to thank you. But before I get out of here, I do want to ask you, because you've been a part of the evolution of fan entertainment from halftime shows to full sensory experiences, what is the next frontier in sports presentation?
Well, it's what's coming down the pipeline. So I don't know what that is. I mean, with technology, it's ever changing, right? And so you've seen things come across, whether it's the big screens to augmented and virtual reality. I mean, you just don't know. AI is reshaping how event presentation is really being looked at. I mean, it's going to allow event presentation directors to really personalize experiences more than ever, whether it's curating music, promotions, the content based on fan behaviors, that type of stuff. You just don't know. So I wish I could answer that question for you. You've seen drones out there replacing fireworks. I just don't know what it's going to be, but tomorrow there'll be something.
Well, how do you adjust? How do you make an adjustment to the unknown?
Yeah, well, you know what? We are all in that space right now, and I think that a lot of this unknown, a lot of this latest and greatest technology isn't really affordable for majority of those that are out there until it's well down the pipeline, has been out there for a number of years where the price comes down. Think about in terms of augmented reality or virtual reality. I mean, you see a lot of that going on, but it's extremely pricey in the very beginning. Only certain organizations that are willing to invest with ownership to do these, be the test models and do all these great things, or projection mapping and all that that you see on ice and on buildings. Wonderful. Fantastic. But let's be honest, the average organization out there doesn't have the money to do any of that. But the one technology that you can take advantage of right now is AI in terms of helping, which we just talked about, or even brainstorming and reshaping ideas and trying to personalize experiences more than ever. And I think that, whether it's, you got to get on board and not be afraid of it, not be afraid of technology. So whether you need to take some YouTube classes or whatever in terms of understanding the best use for how to develop the right types of prompts that are going to lead you in the right direction, and what AI is the best AI for you to utilize moving forward outside of GPT, that's up to you.
Yeah. Give me 3 words that you would never want anyone to use to describe you.
Oh, me personally or my presentations?
You personally.
Unorganized, poor communicator, and I would say no passion.
Passionate, great communicator. I love that. All of those things. Very organized. Absolutely. Was the book tough for you? I know writing and publishing a book can be a little different. How was that for you?
Well, I got to be honest with you. It's actually fairly easy. I started off by creating these outlines of all the chapters. And to be honest with you, and I did follow, but when I got time for writing the book, it just flowed. I just basically decided to put I knew the order of the elements that I wanted to present, but I put the outline to the side and I said, you know what? Just let all that information, all the game day directoring you come out and just write as if you're explaining it to your staff and everybody else and students over the years. And I just started pouring out and I had to edit a lot, but I just started pouring out all the important details.
I definitely appreciate that. Now, before we get out of here, let the people know if they want to get in touch with you or continue to follow your journey and get your book, what they should do next.
Yeah, first and foremost, the book can be bought any major retailer out there, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can go to my website, and that's costantegroup.com. That's COSTANTEGROUP. From there, you can learn more about the book. You can even purchase the book from there with Amazon, but it will give you all the inside information that you need if you're wondering, is this really what I need? Does this have all the type of information I'm looking for? It really goes into a lot more detail. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I really, LinkedIn is Don Costante, and just connect with me. If you want to schedule a call, I'm always happy to do that. But I'm also on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So feel free to reach out to me anytime.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, guys. Thank you for listening to us today. And hopefully you will go out and support, get the book, use it as a guide, reach out. That's why we're here, because we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. Thanks so much for being here. Hey, thanks for showing up to the podcast where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. When you get a sec, take a moment, leave a comment. What you think about today's episode, and share it with someone that you know could use the gems that were dropped today. Follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss who's coming up next. You never know who could show up here and what they could say. For your professional needs, marketing, PR, communications, and leadership, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Sand and Shores, or hit us up at sandandshores.com. Again, thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.